What's my future plans and goals? Well, I'm hoping to continue making good quality videos to help people to see, to learn more about Islam and to understand some of the issues. And that's my goal, to continue improving the quality of my videos, to get into some live conversations with, it doesn't have to be live, but to get into some conversations with interesting people, whether it's ex-Muslims, whether it's Muslims. I work in IT, so I work on computers, and that's actually really helpful to me, and that's how I was able to build Light Upon Light to be a big Islamic website. And so that's actually quite useful to me. I am not so handy around the house, but I am quite handy when it comes to computers. Yes, my wife is still Muslim. And what's the strongest evidence for the existence of God? One of the things, one of the arguments is, argument from strongest evidence for God. So it seems like the fine-tuning argument does have some, it's a reasonably strong argument for the existence of God. Fine-tuning in the sense of, some of the parameters that led to our existence. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to wonder, how is it possible that life as we know it came to exist, which is called abiogenesis, not evolution. Evolution is pretty easy to understand, but abiogenesis, which is how the world, how life began to exist, from nothing into what it is today. Richard Dawkins, in his book, The Selfish Gene, actually not The Selfish Gene, but The Blind Watchmaker, discusses this topic as to how it's possible for, for basically inorganic matter and to become organic matter. Started off at RNA, then became DNA. And then, DNA is the basis of all life as we know it. So that's one of the difficult questions that we have to, maybe one day we'll be able to do it and reproduce creating life in a lab, maybe not. It's clearly something that if it happens, it's going to be 1 in a million. So it's not something that's easy to reproduce. If it was, then life would be popping up everywhere. But as for the fine-tuning argument, the response to it, at least one response to it, is that even if there was other worlds, other universes with life in it, like how would we know? Because we haven't seen those worlds. And even if there was like millions of worlds and none of them had life, well, the one that has life, our world, that's the only one we can observe, right? So we can't really comment on as to, what, what's a possibility. We also don't know what are the chances for each world to have the probabilities that they do, because a lot of people will say, well, the fine-tuning argument says that the weak nuclear force, if it was off by this much, or the strong nuclear force, if it was off by this much, then we wouldn't have life as we know it. But we don't know, like the dice, if there's a dice that's being rolled to create universes, we don't know what the probability is that, it ends up as what we have today. Maybe the chance is 100%, maybe that's the only possibility. And so, I do feel like the arguments for God are very hard to get to any real conclusion, because when you argue God exists or God doesn't exist, like a kind of general God, you don't really know, like it's so abstract, right? If you don't define God as someone that sent revelation, something that we can actually test, it's just a creator or just some force or energy or something, it's very difficult to argue on that point. So some people will say I believe in some energy, and some people will say I believe in a God that didn't get involved in the creation of the universe. Sorry, that got involved in the creation of the universe, but doesn't get involved on a day-to-day basis. This would be like Spinoza's God or Einstein's God. But this God never sent revelation. So if this is the God we're talking about, this God is unfalsifiable. So it's kind of pointless to just, to argue whether that type of God exists. What's my faith? Yeah, I don't have any faith. I'm an atheist right now, so I believe that there is no God. I'm okay with people that are deist. I'm okay with that position. I think that's a valid position as well. Like I was saying, there is some arguments for fine-tuning or for a creator of some sort. And so if that's true, if that's the case, then, well, so be it, right? But I don't think there's any sort of religion that God actually sent to humanity. Do you think your attempts at propagating kufar is a way to compensate for the fact there's a void in you left by Islam? Oh, that's too funny. And I know it must be a Muslim that asked that question. Does it look like I'm unhappy to you? Do I look like there's a void in my life now that I'm missing from bowing down 5 times a day to the pre-Islamic entity known as Allah? Do you think do I look sad to you? Do I look unhappy? I'm not. I'm perfectly happy. Like, watch my video, The Purpose of Life, to get an understanding of why you don't need God to be happy in life. Clearly, someone that's asking the question hasn't really thought about this question. If God stopped existing, just imagine for some reason God stopped existing. Would your life suddenly become worthless? I mean, you are doing whatever you're doing in life. Let's say you get up every day, you go to work, you take care of your kids, you take care of your family. If you don't have kids, maybe you're looking for a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you want to get married one day, or maybe you don't want to get married, maybe you want to join a soccer team, maybe you want to invent some technology, maybe you're a software developer, maybe whatever it is in your life that you enjoy doing, are you going to suddenly stop enjoying that? If you like roast chicken dinner, are you going to suddenly stop eating roast chicken dinner because there's no God? I don't think so. So whoever's asking this question clearly hasn't thought about it very much. So no, like there's no void left from Islam. Honestly, some people have a struggle. Some people leave Islam and they struggle and they don't know what to do with their life, and they feel they feel lost and hopeless and empty. And not me. Nah, I'm fine. Let's see what else is being said. Do I have any debates planned? I would love to have a debate. I was actually scared to have a debate, but Ali Dawa kind of pushed me into it, and because he pushed me into it, I was like, okay, let's do it. And then he ran away. But then after that, I'm like, okay, like now he ran away, but I prepped myself up, I got myself all pumped up. Now he ran away, so now I'm like, okay, I'll find somebody. But I've been trying to find somebody, and nobody wants to do it, even a friendly discussion. So I found a bunch of ex-Muslims that are willing to have friendly discussions, but no Muslims, and I'm sad about that. So if you guys know anyone that'd be willing to have a discussion with me on the topic of why Islam is true or why Islam is false, I would love it. I'm not too interested in debating God. Like I said, I've heard the atheist arguments and the religious arguments for kalam, cosmological argument, ontological argument, and fine-tuning argument. And I'm not a philosopher, and you know what, I don't really want to get into that. And I do understand the responses to those points, but I just don't think it's worth the time. I don't think anyone really cares if God exists. What they care about is, did God send a revelation to humanity? That's what people care about. Is there a religion that we need to live by in order to worship God and to praise God and to be on God's good side? That's what people want to know. They don't want to know whether there's some abstract entity called God that doesn't care about us, right? My ethnicity is, I was born in Kenya, but like 3 generations of Indians, and going back, it'd be in India. Rosie, I don't think there's a creator. Let's put it like that. I'm skeptical that there's no God. There might be a God, but as far as I know, there is no God. The more I study science and physics, I do believe that there's enough explanation that we can explain the world without God. And so, I'm telling you, as I'm studying more and more, I'm studying metaphysics, I'm reading books on physics, I'm reading books on the universe, I'm reading books on, philosophy, and the more I read, the more I feel like we're all alone here. And, it's quite possible that the universe, not this current universe, but the universe outside of the universe, what you can call the quantum foam, what we've seen is particles pop in and out of existence without any cause. So they're coming out of somewhere. So there's something outside of the universe. We know that. You can call that the quantum foam. You can call that the cosmos. Whatever you call it, I believe that reality may have always existed, just like God always exists. Just like believers say God always existed. So I think there's a good enough explanation without God, and or you could believe in God too. But it's kind of like, you want to try to explain how an infinitely complicated, created being who is infinitely intelligent came out of, always existed, or you just want to accept the universe always existed. That, either way, I think as human beings, we're going to be stuck for explanations. Shout out to Introverted Smiles. How's it going, man? Looking forward to having a conversation soon. Thanks for joining. This was a totally unplanned call here. Who created God? I mean, that's an illogical question, because we're presuming that God is the beginning, the primordial being. Just like, I believe that the universe is always existing, so it's quite possible God is always existing if there is a God. So who created God is going beyond the actual definition of God. The definition of God is that has no beginning and has no creator. So that's like kind of contradicting yourself when you say who created God, and I think we need to move past that point. What are the things a Muslim has to do to go to heaven? He has to believe in Allah, believe in all of his messengers, and believe in Muhammad, and Muhammad is the final messenger. So as long as you believe that there's no God except Allah, and Allah is just the creator, and Muhammad is his messenger, and if you accept Muhammad as messenger, obviously you accept the Quran, you accept the angels, you accept the Day of Judgment, you accept jinns, you accept every single thing in the Quran, you don't reject anything in the Quran, you believe in saying your prayers and so on and so forth. Everybody has a different definition, but my orthodox Sunni definition is basically that. What are my thoughts on Jordan Peterson? He's an interesting fellow. I'm still listening to him. I'm still trying to learn. He has some, I talked about this in the last live talk I had, and I think he has some, concerns about atheism, and he has some concerns about, nihilism, meaning if people stop believing in God, we'll all be like nihilist, meaning we'll have no desire to live anymore. We'll just want to kill ourselves or something. And sometimes believers will even mention that how come you have you have atheists killing themselves at higher rates than the non-atheists. Well, the reason why is because let's say you have two people. One person's an atheist, one person believes in, like, say, religion. If the guy believes in Islam, and he believes that if he's going to kill himself, he's going to go to hell, and Prophet Muhammad said whoever kills himself will go to hell. Whereas atheists will be like, my life sucks, I have this chronic disease, I'm in a lot of pain and suffering, I had a pretty good life, I'm in my 60s or 40s or whatever. You know what, like, I'd rather just die with dignity. And that's what euthanasia is. It's that you choose to die on your own terms, rather than becoming a frothing mess and you can't talk and you're like disabled and you lose your dignity, right? So atheists are willing to say, well, I don't think there's anything happening after, maybe I'm wrong, but at that point they're willing to kill themselves. Whereas a believer might be thinking they're going to go into an even worse place, so they just suffer in this life. So that's kind of why I think that kind of answers the nihilism. And Jordan Peterson also believes that when we get to atheism or lack of belief in God, without this absolute moral value thing, people will just, the morals will go loose. People will steal, murder, cheat, lie, all these things. And I don't think this is true either, because if you look at Iceland and we look at some countries like Japan that have a high rate of atheism, I mean, Buddhism basically, Buddhists don't believe in God in the traditional Abrahamic sense. So we don't find them going and killing each other and murdering at higher rates. What we do find is that societies that have a higher belief in God, for example, United States, they tend to have more crime, more violent crime. And so I don't know about Jordan Peterson's concerns, if they're valid. He also has some concerns about the traditional family unit, and what will happen if people stop having a traditional family, and instead of getting married and having one or two kids, there's just like dating and stuff, and there's no marriage, or maybe there's different types of relationships, like gay relationships or homosexual relationships, and then there's like open relationships. So he's worried that the whole society will collapse. I don't really know, what I mean? So that's some of the things I gleaned from Jordan Peterson, and I don't really have anything more to say than that on him. I'm filling the hole with hedonistic pleasures. Oh my goodness, you are so funny. Like, by hedonistic pleasures, you mean like spending time with my family? You mean blogging? You mean working a regular job, coming home, taking my kids, and spending time with my wife? That's what you call hedonistic pleasures? Buddy, I'm 34 years old, okay? I don't go clubbing, I don't go drinking. My life is a typical dad life, okay? So if you think that's hedonistic, I don't think you know what hedonistic is. And by the way, what's wrong with people that want to be hedonistic, okay? I do believe that we should try to be better people. We should sacrifice. We should give in charity. We should try to improve the world and leave the world in a better place than we got it. But that doesn't mean that people don't have the choice to do what they want with their life. You have that life, you can choose what you want to do with it. And I already explained that. It's not about hedonism, it's not about, selfish pleasures. It's about your life, make something out of it. And of course, I encourage people to do something for others. I mean, that's my whole purpose of my blog and my videos. And why else do I do this? Because I want to help people and I want to have these discussions. And by having these discussions, it makes people think, and it brings reflection. And you know what? If people are going to waste their life on a fake religion made by Muhammad, I mean, that's a waste of a life right there. I'd rather that they spend their life doing something that they enjoy, whether it's music, whether it's some sort of entertainment, whether it's making movies or watching whatever it is. Who made us slaves in the first place? Who put us in this cage, right? You know what I mean? Muhammad put us in this cage, and now you want to complain about people that want to leave the cage? I don't think so. How old am I? Yeah, 34. Is it possible I'll come back to Islam? It's possible, but I don't see how that could be. There's just so many holes in it. I don't see how I can come back to Islam. There's just too many problems in Islam, right? Am I going to make a video on debunking the minor signs of Day of Judgment? I want to leave Islam, but these signs kind of worry me because some of them seem to come true. So the thing about the signs of the Day of Judgment, these signs, there's a couple of ways to think about it. One is Muslims actually fulfill the signs, which is kind of funny. Prophet Muhammad says, at the end of time or the Day of Judgment, they're going to have the naked desert Bedouins, were shoeless, building tall buildings. So the Muslims are like, yeah, I want to do that. I'm going to build the tall buildings. But does it really match? Are those guys naked? Are they shoeless? Are they rich princes building tall buildings? It doesn't really match, does it? And there's something called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you actually come up with the target. So you go on a barn, you paint the barn with a little, like a target, but you do that after you shoot the arrow. So you shoot the arrow, you hit the barn, and then you paint it and say, look, it landed exactly on, where I was shooting. Or it's like you roll the dice and it lands as a 6. And you're like, what are the chances it was going to land as a 6? So a lot of these things are actually filled in after the fact. Like Muslims will look at what the Prophet said and say, look, it's what the Prophet said, and it's this, and they'll actually make it match what the Prophet said. So if you have some particular examples of things that he said about the Day of Judgment that came true, I can answer that. But I think in general, it's just some of them are so vague and general that, and it doesn't talk about a specific thing, right? It talks about just a general kind of prediction that it could come true many times past. And then let's think about Nostradamus. Nostradamus made a whole bunch of claims that came true. So does that mean he's a prophet, right? You know what I'm saying? So some of it is just like luck. Some of it, he said so many things that just a couple of them will come true. It doesn't make him a true prophet, right? That was speaking to God. What are my thoughts on death before and after leaving Islam? Well, as a Muslim, I'd say in a sense I actually valued life less than I value now, because I'm going to die and, hopefully go to paradise. But of course, there's a fear of the Day of Judgment. There's a fear of hell. So that's also like a kind of anxiety that weighs on you. Now that I'm, I don't believe in God, and I don't know if there's anything happening after you die, I make the most of my life, and, I know that things that need to be fixed, I try to fix them now. I don't wait for the next life. You know what I mean? And I want other people to value their life. And so death, we don't know what happens at death. I personally think when you die, everything just ends. I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like. Okay, I'm just going through the. Okay, do you have to wear a bandana or a mark of allegiance to be a Muslim? No, you don't have to. Prophet Muhammad said, grow your beard. So if you want, you can grow your beard. That's considered optional. Some people consider like obligatory, but for the most part, you don't have to wear any sort of mark of allegiance. What's a good unbiased book on the history of Islam and Muhammad? I read something called The Sealed Nectar, Rahiq al-Makhtum. It's written by this Indian author that, in Arabic and then translated in English. It's very rough. I think any book is fine. Maybe Martin Ling's Muhammad, he's a Sufi and he obviously puts a very positive spin on it. But, I think any book you read on Muhammad will be biased, but in one way or another. But, Rahiq al-Makhtum, The Sealed Nectar, has a lot of disturbing stuff in it too. So he didn't hide any of that. I was not Ahmadiyya. I was born as an Ismaili, and around the age of like 18 or so, I converted to Sunni Islam, and I was Sunni Islam for most of my life. As a kid, I was Ismaili, but I wasn't really practicing. It takes brainwashing to believe that nothing caused the universe to explode into existence. Well, if you think about the universe, and you think about the Big Bang, what does the Big Bang say? Big Bang says that before the universe came into existence, there was no time. So when you say it came into existence, there was no time before the Big Bang. And we don't know what happens when the universe is going to, reach its final stages, right? Is it going to collapse back into nothing and then explode again in an infinite loop? Is it just going to become what's called a freeze death? Is it going to be a heat death? There's so many different, possibilities. And so, I would say, well, okay, if you want to believe in God, believe in God. But what's the evidence that Muhammad is a messenger of God? And what's the evidence that this God is the one that made the universe exist? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you know the universe just didn't exist forever as well? Like, not this universe, but the quantum form, as I mentioned before. And I think if you study a little bit of science, you'll see that even though these are on the edges of science, there's explanations now that help us to understand that there's something outside of the universe. This universe is not the end-all and be-all. Like, where do those particles come from that pop into existence, right? And there's the uncaused particles, So, okay, let's keep going. I'm going to ignore that silly question. As an atheist, are you allowed to masturbate? What kind of question is that? Come on, give me a break. You don't have to wear a bandana with the words, there's no God but Allah. Yeshua, there's no such bandana. That's just a style. What's the one argument against Islam, in my opinion? I think there's tons. The one go-to argument I use nowadays is chapter 21, verse 30. Don't the disbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined, and we separated them, and we made out of water everything? So this verse actually says that, the heavens and earth was joined, and then we separated them and made everything out of water. The first part is interesting because it says the heavens and the earth were joined. How is the heavens and earth joined? That's the question, right? Like, everything we know about science now tells us that the heavens and earth was not joined. The earth came billions of years after the Big Bang, after the creation of the universe. And lo and behold, every single culture back then used to think the heavens and earth were joined. Surprise, surprise. Muhammad said the same thing as every other culture in his time. Now, what does that tell you? Is that like, you know what I mean? Like, does that not make you doubt, like, Muhammad was just making up stuff? Or do you really believe he was just convenient? You just believe that every other culture was saying the same thing. So that's one argument against Islam. Evolution is another big argument. It's almost like the story of Adam and Eve does not add up whatsoever. I mean, there's so many arguments against Islam. And that's why when people ask me, are you going to become Muslim again? I don't see how it's possible in any way. There's so many problems with Islam. It's just too many problems. Okay, just scrolling through the comments now. Trying to... why does the Quran say Jesus is coming back when the teachings of Muhammad are opposite? I believe that Muhammad wanted to say Jesus was coming back, maybe to make his message match with the story of the Antichrist and the Day of Judgment from the biblical sources. That's my prediction. Drinking is bad. You don't need religion to understand that. Yeah, drinking is bad. It has its benefits, you can say, for relaxation or whatever. But yeah, overall, it's not good for you. Okay. Check out this Threads of a Redeemed Heart by Ravi Zacharias. Okay, thank you. Let's keep going. I'm trying to see any other questions. Sorry, it's like a lot of comments here. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so there's too many comments, so I'm going to wait for the next question. And do I believe in free will? I actually don't. I actually don't believe in free will. I think that we are, products of our genetics, products of our environment, and experiences. So everything that I'm doing in my life, like for example, why did I come out about Islam publicly? Well, in my environment, I'm pretty safe, right? No one's going to kill me for the most part, hopefully. What else? Well, I believe in freedom of speech and free values, and I grew up in Canada, and this had an influence on me. What else? Well, I have a certain personality, which is a very outgoing personality, which is based on my, either my upbringing or my genes. What else? And so on and so on and so on. So there's so many factors that made me into who I am today. And those factors led me to, to do what I did. And if I had the exact same genetics and I had the exact same experiences, I would do the exact same thing that I'm doing. I actually don't think there's any such thing as free will. I think there's an idea of free will, like there's an illusion of free will, but what the neuroscience, from my understanding, says that even before an idea pops into your mind, it actually gets registered before that, and they have machines that can actually register that. So as the science develops, I think we'll find out whether we actually have free will or not. Like if it comes a point in time where we can actually predict what a person is going to say or think. And I've seen some experiments, or I've read some experiments. If you look it up on free will experiments on YouTube, you can watch some of them, or you can look up Sam Harris's book on free will, and he described some of the issues with free will, and he gives some examples of people like this one guy that he killed a bunch of people, and then he said, I don't even know why I've become so violent and this and that, and then he killed himself, and then when they found out, he had like a brain tumor that was pressing against and affecting his thinking. Another example is when leaded gasoline was used in the US, it went in the air and it was poisoning people, and people became more violent, right? And they used to do more, the murder rate was higher, right? And there's another argument that's made about abortions, which may or may not be true, which said that when they made abortions legal, after like 30 years or whatever, all those kids who would have been born, which their parents didn't want them, they would have been committing crime, so the crime rate dropped. And that was presented by Freakonomics, the authors of the Freakonomics book. I don't know, like I heard some counter arguments to that, but whether or not there's free will, we might have a little bit of free will, or we might have no free will. I don't know about that, and there's a bit of a debate, but that's my opinion. Honestly, I think for the most part, there's no such thing as free will. Okay, do I have any other atheists in my family? A lot of my family members are not very religious, but they're all, for the most part, Muslims. And so I don't really have any atheist family members. I'd say for the most part, they all believe in God. Some are more religious, some are less religious. About the preservation of the Quran, there was a fragment found in Birmingham, well, which matches what we have in today's Quran. So I don't really know. I think my issue with the Quran preservation is it that the copy that we have, I do believe, is the same copy that Uthman had. But my concern is whether Uthman's copy is the actual legit copy that Prophet Muhammad had, or whether the variations were destroyed to hide the evidence that Uthman's copy, he destroyed all of the other versions, right? So I'm not too sure if the copy we have today is the one that Muhammad had. You have to trust Uthman that he did the right thing and he didn't destroy the actual correct Quran. But as a Muslim, you have to believe the Quran is preserved, as far as I know, because the Quran says that God will protect it. So if you don't believe that, then I don't know what you believe in the Quran exactly. But there's a lot of hadith that as well that seem to contradict that the Quran was preserved. And so I don't know. I went introverted. Did I ever go for Hajj or Umrah? I went for Umrah, which is I went for the, what do you call it? I went for the Umrah, which was kind of what you call the baby Hajj. And what that is you don't go for the entire set of experiences or rituals. You just do some of them. And so that's what I did. And I went with my family. I went with my wife and mom and kids. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was kind of like a nice historic place to be. Obviously, I believed there was something special in the air, and I thought it was like holy, and I thought I'm getting special reward for praying there, 100,000 times the Prophet said or something. And so I thought I was in this blessed land, and it was kind of cool. It was like a vacation, right? And I was in a 5-star hotel, and we paid like, I don't know, 300 to 500 a night or something. So it was expensive, but we had fun, and so I enjoyed it. But now I couldn't go back to it because it would be like, it's so fake now. Everything is fake. The Saudi government is hiding the archaeological evidence and is hiding, all of the reality of what's going on over there. And if they really wanted to know, they would actually They would invite archaeologists to look and research and see whether the official story of Islam is true, but they're actually doing the opposite. They're bulldozing, they're destroying, they're doing whatever they can to hide the evidence. So I don't believe that, that Saudi may not be the birthplace of Islam. There's a documentary called The Sacred City, written by Dan Gibson. It's a book and a documentary, The Sacred City. You can rent it for like $6 or something. It's not free, but you can watch it online. And it gives a lot of evidence that Makkah is not the birthplace of Islam. So I'm not sure. What I do know is that history is very difficult to prove. And so maybe Muhammad was born in Petra, Jordan. I don't know. But again, I don't usually bring up this point because it's too far outfield and people are like, yeah, crazy. So I don't go into that point. Okay. Do I think a distance to the sun, the Earth's rotation speed, the moon's distance to Earth is coincidence? Actually, just think about it like this. Like it's like asking, it's like a pool of water saying, like water inside a hole in the ground, saying, look, this hole was made just for us. It's like if life was going to come about in a situation where life can come about, like, does it make sense to say, hey, look, we're in the perfect position? Just think about it. If you have the right conditions for life to come about naturally without any intervention from God, like, don't you think it's silly to say, hey, look, life came about? Of course life came about. It's not that we're in the perfect position. It's that we are one of billions and billions and billions of planets. And even NASA has found found evidence of other Earth-like stars, right, that are the right distance from the sun that can actually also have life. So there may be other places that have life in the universe, and they're probably saying the same thing. Hey, look, we're in the right position for life. And the other guys on the other side of the universe, hey, look, we're also in the right position for life. And the other guys that are also in the right position say, hey, look, we're also in the perfect position, just the right perfect position for life. And the rest of the universe, 99.9% of the universe is dead and is empty space and is nothingness. And it's like the few places where there happens to be, the right condition. It's like, hey, look, it's a miracle. We have life. So that's how I explain it. How far do you think Islam will spread based on the laws going to place? I don't know. I'm not sure, but I do think that it's being challenged. Islam is being challenged like never before, and so that's the way it is. I don't think that it's my country of origin is, like I said, I was born in Kenya, and but I'm Indian background, right? Tomb of Abraham. No, I don't know anything about the Tomb of Abraham. Sorry. Okay. And have I ever had sex? Buddy, I have 5 kids. Obviously. Are there any things you feel Allah would never have left out of the Quran if He was really God? So if I was looking at the Quran and saying, like, what's the problem with the Quran and how could it be improved? If I was, leaving a message for all of humanity, like, wouldn't you want to leave like general principles, not like very, very specific things that would like eventually not make sense? Like stone the adulterers and lash the adulterers and chop off the hands of the adulterers and like, give half the inheritance to a woman. Like, it seems to me if I was God that like, I would send general principles for good living, kind of like what you find in Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, or like, be a good person and don't harm other people, and general things like do unto others like you want to be done unto yourself. Like things like that is, I think, what God should have sent us, not like very specific things, which I don't think He sent us, but Muhammad came up with of his own. What are my thoughts on Imam Tawhidi? I don't know. A lot of ex-Muslims have issues with him. He seems to be, I don't know, he seems more like an ex-Muslim than a Muslim. I don't know, the things he says are weird. He also seems to be using his points to win sectarian points against Sunnism for Shiism. I don't know, like, he seems very strange. He's a very strange fellow. And apparently he has some issues with his background check. So is he really what he says? I don't know. Like, I don't know much about him. But like, it's weird. Like, he says he's a believer, yet he condemns just about everything in Islam. Like, it's weird. Justin, we haven't discovered other Earths. We have discovered 7 other Earths, but they're not, we have limited distance of what we can know and what we can see and what we can find. There's a beautiful channel on YouTube called Kurzagast. It's kind of hard to pronounce and spell. Kurz. Just type in Kurz, and you'll find it. And they have some beautiful videos on what are the limits of humanity. Do you know, like, even now as we speak, the universe is expanding and everything is getting further and further away from each other. What that means is eventually we won't be able to see anything in space outside of a solar system. And everybody, imagine this, we are born in a time where we can actually see, a lot of the universe, some of it, right? Whatever we can do with the technology. There's going to come a time where every galaxy is going to be so far away that if somebody is born, let's say some alien is born, they're going to think they're all alone in the universe. They're not even going to know like what's outside, because the universe has expanded more than the speed of light can travel in that distance. So by the time you actually find out what's happening, it's like it's too far away. So there's some limitations to our existence that we have to deal with, right? What do you think about objective morality without God, Matthew? Good question. The way to look at morality is, what is the point of morality? What is the point of ethics? The point is that every action that I do has an effect on others, right? And so we should behave in a way that leads to the maximum positive sum gain for everybody, right? Treat others like you'd want to be treated, right? Like if you lived in a world without consciousness, then there would be no need for morality. If it's just rocks and trees, as Sam Harris has said in his book, and many others have spoken about. But we live in a world of consequences where, actions have an effect on others. So if my action has a negative effect on you and it harms you, then that would be a bad thing to do. And if it has a good effect on others and on myself, then it'd be a good thing to do. And so, my basis for morality is secular humanism, which is I place human flourishing as the basis of my objective morality. Now, that decision is subjective. So I could have said, animal welfare over human welfare is my basis of morality. And so in that case, I would value an animal's life over, say, a human life. But, I'm a secular humanist, so secular humanism puts humanity at the top and, of course, cares about the environment and everything else. But, like, if you had to choose between an animal and, like, a human, you would choose the human over the animal, So there's some subjectiveness there, but, overall, once you decide on secular humanism as your basis, you can make, judgments as to what's good and bad based on that. So that's what I believe. And it's all about what hurts others and what doesn't hurt others, right? What's my opinion on Trump? I'm not going to go there. I'm not really an expert on politics. Am I Gujarati? Yeah, actually my background is Gujarati, even though unfortunately I don't speak Gujarati. So, humans evolved within the Earth's atmosphere. Universe is not made of us. That's true. Why do you think people still hold on to religion? Because, this is a very good question, Kilobyte. Why do people hold on to religion? I honestly think it's lack of courage. People are scared of, like Jordan Peterson is saying that, we're going to become nihilist and we're not going to have a purpose in life, and we're not going to know how to judge what's right and wrong, and we're not going to know what to do with ourselves. So I think people are scared that what if I look into these doubts I have, what'll happen? Will I lose my faith? Will I become, will I not have any purpose and meaning? And I'm scared. Like, I want to believe in God, and I want to believe in the next life, and I want to meet my family members in paradise, and I want to be reunited, and I want to live forever. So I think people are scared, right, to kind of confront. And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think everyone is intellectual. Excuse me. I think people are just not everyone is smart. Like, that's the thing. Religion appeals to people for a specific reason, and it's easy to believe in, and it kind of makes sense, and so you believe it, and your parents kind of brainwashed you as a kid, so you have a hard time overcoming it. There's a channel called Theremin Trees, TherAmin, Theremin Trees. Look him up. He has some great videos on like kind of cartoon videos on the topic of doubt, on belief, on brainwashing, how kids are brainwashed, and how it's so hard to overcome the fear of hell and the fear of like even today I got a message from an ex-Muslim. He says, I'm ex-Muslim, I don't believe in God, but I'm still scared of hell. Can you help me? So I think that the propaganda and the brainwashing, it's just so powerful, and it takes over our instinct of survival instinct. So I think that's what, it takes over that and it uses that against you, right? So you're scared and you don't want to be in hell. So you're like, okay, I'm going to believe just in case. And therefore you waste your whole entire life on a false idea just because you're scared to confront the truth. And the solution for this is research, research, research. Just keep leading, keep leading, keep leading, and you'll find a way. You'll find a way through there. Okay. Yeah. What do you think of Muhammad having sex slaves yet still punishing adulterers? Isn't someone having sex freely better than rape? That's the thing about my morality. According to secular humanism, two people consenting to sleep together doesn't hurt anybody, but sex slavery does hurt people. That woman who is a slave didn't consent to have her body being used in that manner. So according to Islamic morality, which is basically Muhammad's morality, which is basically, my private parts are more important than your body, and my desire are more important than your right to your own body and your right to deny other people to use you. And that's what Islamic morality says, that, you're allowed to sleep with your slaves. Of course, nobody owns slaves other than ISIS nowadays. But honestly speaking, it's totally perverse, the idea that you can sleep with someone that you own like that. You know what I mean? And how come it's only men can sleep with female slaves and not the other way around? And what's up with these rules that benefit men? All of these rules that benefit men. Wouldn't it just make more sense that Allah said, "Oh, you will believe when you capture slaves, do not sleep with them, but offer them marriage, offer to marry them, free them. And then if they marry you freely, then of course, it's halal for you. But instead it's like, protect your private parts from, your spouse and your slaves." It's like, what? My spouse and slaves? So I can have a spouse and slaves? And so, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's, according to secular humanism, it makes no sense. According to Islamic morality, hey, it's all fine and handy dandy. Was 9/11 an inside job? I don't know. I don't think so. Anyways, yeah, my views on Nabil Qureshi. He's a fellow that became Christian. I respect him for his decision, and I haven't really discussed with him, but yeah, I respect his decision that he made. I mean, everyone's free to believe what they want to believe, right? When will Islam be wiped off this earth? I don't know. Does it need to be wiped off this earth? I don't have a problem with people being Muslim. I really don't. I have a problem when Islam is forced upon other people. If people just want to worship Allah, pray 5 times a day, or not 5 times, 3 times, or whatever, fast and do their own personal worship, and I don't care. Go right ahead. Just don't force it on other people. Don't make hijab a burden on people, and don't make niqab force niqab on people, and don't try to make your Islamic law on top of other people. Just practice your religion, and as long as we have secularism, I don't really care if Islam goes away from this world. Islam's not going to go away from this world, and I think that's a false idea to think that it's going to go away. It's fine as long as we have secularism and we have free laws for everybody. I mean, fair laws for everybody. Then there's no problem with Islam, Christianity, Judaism, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not the type of person that wants to end up in a fascist state where people are given, it's made illegal to believe in something. It's made illegal to think something. You know what I mean? I believe in free speech. I believe in freedom of expression and freedom of religion. People need to decide for themselves what's best for themselves, right? I mean, we're not dictators. I don't want to end up in a dictator state again, right? The Masked Arab is absolutely amazing. If you haven't seen him, check out his channel, The Masked Arab. Pete, you're saying prayers for Nabil. Yeah, he has cancer, right? And I'm sorry to hear about his cancer. I personally don't think that prayers do anything. And that's one of the things that made me leave Islam, is when you look at the effects of prayer studies, like the Harvard prayer study, it's the same effect whether you pray for someone or don't pray for someone. As best as we can study it, as best as we can measure it, It doesn't seem to have any effect. Whether you pray for someone, whether you pray to God or pray to Jesus or pray to Allah or don't pray or talk to your plants, and whatever the case is, it doesn't seem to have any effect. So, I wish him well, but unfortunately, I don't think there's anyone out there that's really listening. Okay, so, wow, Muslims won't give up, eh? They keep going on and on and on about nihilism and you have no hope in your life, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. I love my life. I'm happy without Islam. Why the hell would I want to go back to someone else's fake religion that's telling me how to live my life, that's all based on lies and copied ideas and transformed ideas from different religions? It's such a pagan thing. Like, if you just think about it, like, first of all, you're slaughtering animals in this God's name, like, and just think about pre-Islamic pagan life. And when you think about Islam and how it maintains so much of that, like the holy months, the sacred months, the pre-Islamic sacred months, going between Safa and Marwa, those two idols, they used to have two idols, that's maintained in Islam as well. The Kaaba itself, is there any evidence the Kaaba was made by Ibrahim alayhi salam? Absolutely not. The Kaaba is a house of idol worship. It always was a house of idol worship. Muhammad, rebranded it into house of Allah, house of monotheism, right? So, like, why would my life be miserable because I don't believe in Muhammad's 7th century religion? Just give it up, guys. Like, we don't need that. We don't need that stuff, right? If you want a religion, look into like Buddhism or something that teaches you like good values and like general principles, right? Like, what I'm saying? Like, why do you want to be Muslim and follow this false idea, right? This house of in Arabia that you have to go around 7 times. There's a lot of connection between the seven planets and going around 7 times. Just the Kaaba being in the lowest part of the valley, the fact that it had idols in it, the fact that there's no evidence that Abraham ever went to Makkah in any of the other holy religious books of Christianity or Judaism. Like, this whole thing is a scam. Like, just because you don't believe in a scam, why would you think someone wouldn't have any purpose in life? Give me a break, honestly. And at the very best, what if I believe? Let's just say, okay, I believe in God. Fine, there, I'm happy. Are you happy now? I believe in God. Yeah. I don't believe in Islam. I don't believe in Allah. Allah's fake, but I believe in God. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Like, whether you believe in God or not believe in God, it's not going to make a difference for your purpose in life. Did Abraham ever exist? According to historical scholars, Abraham, Noah, Moses, most of these guys may not have ever existed. We don't have any real evidence of that. We don't have any evidence that, the Jews, wandered around in the desert for 40 years. There's no evidence of that. Look up Professor Finkelstein, Bible Unearthed, if you want to see the evidence for this. And you'll be surprised. If you want to know about whether Jesus existed or not, atheists love to debate this topic. Some will say Jesus existed, some will say he didn't exist. I personally think he existed, but he was just a normal man and he just died and he wasn't Son of God. But again, if you want to see both sides, there's Bart Ehrman. He has an amazing book, How Did Jesus Become God? And he believes Jesus existed and was a rabbi and, a messianic rabbi that basically was killed. And then there's also Dr. Richard Carrier, who believes that Jesus was just a made-up story that was made up after the fact. And there's a lot of evidence leading to the position that Moses and all of these guys were made up after the fact. But you got to read, you got to research. You can't just believe blindly, right? You got to look into these things. Whatever the case is, definitely God never spoke to them. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia makes like $8 to $12 billion on Hajj every year. It's a small part of the income, like maybe 5% or something of the total income for the country. But yeah, they make like billions of dollars every year from Hajj. It's a good business. That's why I'm saying they'd want to hide, and they definitely don't want people to know if it's not true. There's a huge personal loss to them, right? So yeah, I'm sure they're hiding the fact if it's true. Why don't we see Allah and Muhammad in their dreams? A lot of people see Muhammad in their dreams. A lot of people see Allah in their dreams. Sorry, not Allah. A lot of people see Jesus in the dreams, and a lot of people see Muhammad in the dreams. Dreams are a mind trying to make sense of the world, or trying to put together information, and different people have different opinions about what dreams are, but nobody really seems to have any like dreams are unreliable, right, as a means of information. So excuse me. So yeah, whether we see someone in a dream or not doesn't make it true, right? It's like we know it's a mind making up stuff, right? Is there any pathological impact from leaving a religion that basically has you seek religious approval for every small thing in life? Victor, that's a very good question. Yes, of course, it's very difficult to overcome the fear of hell for many people. I didn't have that problem. It's very difficult for people to stop doing things that they've been taught to do. Like every time you eat, you say Bismillah. Every time you go out, you say this Subhanalladhi sakalana hada wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. I mean, like when you're going in the car, there's the du'as, right? And then before you go to bed, you say this and that, and it's very OCD, right? So yeah, it takes a while to overcome that. It takes a while to be like, to this day, I cannot eat like pork, like bacon, ham. I ate it, and it just makes me disgusted. Like, it's a completely irrational. Like, there's no reason for me not to like it, but it's like, oh, I hate it. And it's like, I think it's disgusting, and it's like, just because I never had it in my whole life, and now it's like I'm stuck with that, and no matter what, like, I just don't like it, right? It might take me many, many, many years to do that, to get over that, right? So yes, when you leave Islam, it takes you many, many, many months or years to kind of deprogram yourself from all of this brainwashing that you went through, right? Opinion on Ayan Hirsi Ali. I'll just say, yeah, I'm not too sure what to say about her. I do support the fact that she was, she suffered under Islam, and she had her, FGM done to her, and yeah, I don't really have much more to say about Ayan. Yes, kindness and love towards your fellow man and family mentioned in the Quran. I think the Quran does mention stuff about following, being just even against your own self. The Quran says, the Prophet said, best of you, those who are best to your wives, and I'm the best to my wife, which didn't seem to be, but anyways. And as well, I do think there's a lot of things talking about being kind to your family in the Quran. I believe so, right? I can't think of anything particular right now, but yeah, there's a lot of good things and bad things both in the Quran. I don't think it's all hate, evil. My family is very easygoing. My mom and dad are quite liberal, and so they were okay with me leaving Islam. I mean, my mom said she does wish I believed in God, but she didn't hate me or something. And so, I have one brother that's very religious, and him and his wife are very disappointed and sad and all that stuff. And a lot of my family was very sad and disappointed. They think I'm going to go to hell. But for the most part, I was kind of okay with my family. Why did God create? According to Islam, I don't know. According to some people, he created because he wanted to be known or something. Or maybe some people say he did it out of his mercy. But why would God create, a creation that the majority would go to hell if he was so merciful? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? As an atheist skeptic, we all know that religion can be disproven quite easily. But what if there's a God, no evidence? But what if there is? Even Stephen Hawking had that thought. Yes, of course. That's what you call deism. And like I said, I believe deism is a reasonable position. So if you want to be deist, I mean, Einstein was deist. Spinoza. There's a bunch of this physicist guy, Michi. He's a deist as far as I know. So yeah, if you want to believe the universe was created, you believe in a theological argument or the fine-tuning argument, and you believe there's a God but he never spoke to us, yeah, that's fine. I think that's a reasonable position. I honestly think that's a reasonable position. Someone's asking me, I'm ignorant. Do you know that you're ignorant about many of the facts when you compare Isa of the Quran with Jesus of the Bible? Yeah, I believe that Prophet Muhammad didn't know much about Islam. Sorry, that sounded dumb. He didn't know much about Jesus in the Bible, and he seemed to know a lot about Moses. And I believe that there was a lot of Jews in Arabia, but there wasn't that many Christians. And the information he had on Christianity was very limited. He had Waraka bin Nawfal, Khadija's uncle, And so he was one source of information for him. But there was a lot of Jews in Medina, so he had a lot of information, and the stories were all going around, and he knew a lot about Moses. The biggest chapter in the Quran is Surah Baqarah, the cow, which talks about the story of Moses in great detail. But when it comes to the story, and also the story of Yusuf or Joseph, there's a lot of detail about that. So those prophets, there's a lot of details. But when it comes to Jesus, there's very little details. And what we find is a lot of the points that we find in Islam from the Quran, there are also points that the points that we find in the Quran are things that we found sources for. Like Jesus speaking as a baby, we found a document in the Syriac language. Syriac is similar to Arabic, that says that it's called the infancy gospel. The infancy gospel talks about Jesus speaking as a baby, right? It also talks about the thing about the clay, and he bleeds into the clay birds and they come to life. And Christians don't accept these stories; they consider them like made up stories. Apocrypha is the correct word. Whereas, Muslims will say, yes, this proves Islam is true, but what does it show? It shows that Muhammad was going based on what he knew at the time, what was around him. If you look at the story, another mistake that Prophet Muhammad made in the Quran, he said that the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say Isa is the son of Allah. So the Quran is comparing the Jews who say Uzair or Ezra is the son of God to the to Christians. And how does that work? Do you know any Jew that says Uzair is the son of God? Have you ever heard of that? Has anyone ever heard of that? I have an article on my blog, abdullahsamir.com, talking about this, where, I show that nobody's ever heard of this. So what does that mean? It means that Prophet Muhammad, in his time and place, there was people saying that, and he included it in the Quran and said, the Jews say Uzair is the son of Allah. Like, Prophet Muhammad, did you ever think that maybe just those Jews that you know in Arabia, those guys are saying that back then and not the Jews? Did you ever think about that? Maybe you should have thought about that before writing that in the Quran, because guess what? Nobody knows what you're talking about now. Like, we never heard of no Jews saying Uzair is the son of Allah. It doesn't make any sense. Let's look at another example. The Sabians mentioned in the Quran is pretty much a religion that's almost completely dead. There's only a few people that follow that religion, and I used to always wonder, who is the Sabians? And it's in the Quran as well, right? Like the Quran is based on things that was around Muhammad at his time. It's not based on the truth, right? And the Quran itself says, we told you these stories and you didn't know, and you weren't there when Mary was having the baby, and she was so upset and no one believed her and all that stuff. Like, these are just made up myths, right? They're just made up stories and tales, right? Like, there's no reason to believe that Jesus had a miracle birth, or that Moses split the sea, or the Quran's the word of God. There's absolutely no reason to believe any of that stuff. No, I don't think my brother watches my videos. He's not really interested in discussing with me. Michio Kaku, thank you, Mubin. That's what I was looking for. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through the comments. What would you say to someone who has been taught Islam as a culture and identity and not an ideology? Is it fair to expect such a person should know and need to research Islam? Yeah, I think everybody has a different level of understanding, and I think a lot of Muslims don't really know the story of the Prophet. They don't really know some of the things he did. They don't really know even what the Quran says, and so it's just kind of vague, right? And it's in their mind, it's like, yeah, I believe in this because my parents taught it to me and I don't really know much about it. So yeah, they need to, I guess if they research it more, they might see the contradictions and leave it, or they might just, use some cognitive dissonance and just kind of not think about it and put it in the back of their mind. My opinion of converted to Islam. Yeah, I don't, he makes some good points. He tends to focus on, the moral issues of Prophet Muhammad, like slavery and sex slaves and murder, and usually Christians tend to focus on that. They don't focus on the science issues or the issues with the stories in the Quran, because the same things can be applied to Christianity as well. So converted to Islam, Abu Ismail, and they won't tend to pick on the fact that the Bible seems to get the creation story wrong as well. Well, They won't pick on the fact the Quran gets a creation story wrong, because the Bible also gets it wrong, right? So they'll tend to pick on stuff like that. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about Abu Ismail. Mubin, what's my favorite movie that's critical of religion? Do you have a favorite movie? I'm not sure what my favorite movie is on creation story. Have you had people in your mosque trying to raise funds for terrorism? No, I don't think so. Like, maybe there was people that was raising money for Hamas, maybe. I don't know. Like, I wasn't aware of it. And you know, Hamas has a charity wing, right? And so they might have sent it there. Yeah, I don't think most of the mosques I know in Canada like raise money for terrorism. I know ISNA is in a scandal now. ISNA Canada or ISNA USA, Islamic Society of North America. But I wasn't aware of that stuff as a Muslim. I didn't hear anyone preaching terrorism or anything like that, other than Anwar Avlaki online on the internet. Anwar Avlaki he's a famous preacher that ended up as a terrorist at the end. He was the only one I know of that was preaching stuff like that. I don't know too much about the legend of the seven sleepers. I'm not sure what about it. Can I talk about my life as an Ismaili? Ismailism is a pretty cool religion. It's pretty easygoing. Ismailis have to give 1/8 of the wealth to Aga Khan, the leader. He's kind of like a pope, you could say. But they're very easygoing on the religion in terms of like, you know, they pray in the morning. They do this like meditation thing and prayer, and then in the evening they have 2 prayers. And so it doesn't really hurt you in your life very much. It's very easygoing. It's a very good community, very close community. They take care of everything. They help each other. So the community benefits are great. And as well, like I said, the religion is not, it doesn't kill you like Sunni Islam. It doesn't put as much burden on you. But of course, again, it's a false religion. The guy takes your money, 1/8 of your money, and he's laughing all the way to the bank. Yeah, the Islamic ritual of prayer is copied from Sabians. Yeah, the idea of the bridge over hell is copied from Zoroastrianism. It's called Chivanat Bridge. Pretty much everything was, you know, Muhammad was taking stuff wherever he could find it, right? You are currently in the honeymoon period exploring life after Islam, and eventually there'll be nothing left to fill the void. Buddy, I'm on 2 years now, and I'm enjoying my life as an atheist. I'm reading books, I'm learning about, you know, how the universe works. Things are clicking in like they never clicked in before. The cognitive dissonance I used to have because of Islam, holding on to ideas that didn't add up with what science and, you know, what everything else was saying, I let go of those things now, and things make so much sense. Things are making more sense than they've ever made in my entire life. And I feel happy as an atheist. You just don't get it. You're not going to get it. I'm never going to be able to convince you that, you know, not believing in God is not, you know, the end of the world. Anyways, whatever. Is the Quran linguistically nice? I don't tend to go into this topic because I'm not an expert on Quranic Arabic. But I've heard from people like Hassan Radwan and another friend of mine who is a Pakistani atheist who lived in Saudi Arabia. I was speaking to him on the phone yesterday. And there's places in the Quran where it looks like there's scribal errors, there's bad grammar, there's confusing sentences. You know, I have a link to a video on my blog, abdullahsamir.com. Click on Linguistic Miracle of the Quran. As to the claim that there's, you know, come up with a surah, like a chapter like it. I have a chapter like it written by Hassan Radwan on my blog. So check it out, and maybe that'll explain it. Okay. Is the Quran worth reading? I don't know. Like, I guess so. It's just a lot of like threats. Like, disbelievers will go to hell, and if disbelievers don't do this, and disbelievers don't do that, and this is a story we're telling you in truth, and this is a story of Moses, and this is a story of Abraham, and this is a story of this one and that one. And if you want to read it, you can read it. I don't know. I don't want to read it anymore. I'm tired of it. Oh, what the? How did the bubbles come up? Oops, no bubbles. Sorry about the bubbles. Okay. Yeah, Quran's pretty negative, right? Will you do any video on errors in the Quran? Yeah, I did a video on errors in the Quran. I talked about Muhammad explains stuff. That's a video on errors in the Quran, right? So, I used to make videos every day. Who made videos every day? How many friends have I lost since I left the religion? Um, yeah, like most of my friends, they still act kind of like, hey, how's it going? Kind of like that. But, clearly there is like some unspoken like elephant in the room that, yeah, he's an enemy of Allah and he's attacking the religion and he's not, you shouldn't be friends with him and this and that. So nobody's trying to kill me, but like at the same time, they're not really so happy with me. Excuse me, and it's understandable, right? But I try to explain to people that I'm not trying to lie about Islam, right? I'm telling the truth how I believe in it, right? Is Jaja Boy the Nomad still alive? I don't know. Talking about Mufassil Islam? Oh, I need to debate Dawah Man? I don't know. Mufassil Islam, yeah, I think he's a cool guy. I think he's very angry at the religion still. And so he has a lot of hatred, right? And the thing is, he lost a lot in his life. His mom doesn't talk to him. He lost his kids. His wife is divorced from him. He has a lot of things he suffered with because of Islam. So he's very like bang, bang, bang antagonistic, Mufassil Islam. He has his own style and I have my own style. I used to think that his style doesn't actually reach people, but apparently a lot of people actually start looking into it when they see his confrontational style and his, Muhammad's a pedophile and he's a rapist and this and that and Islam is evil, and he has his style, right? That's not my style, and I don't think I don't like that style, okay? So that's not my style, but I don't know. That's his style. Atheism is growing in the Arab world, in Pakistan as well. Yeah, 1/8 of his wealth, he must be rich. Aga Khan, you can Google him, Aga Khan. He's a billionaire. Yeah, he's rich. He's very rich. Yeah, he is very rich, actually. There's like 5 to 10 million Ismailis in the world, and they all, for the most part, send him money. So you can imagine, like, it's a pretty nice, sweet deal there, right? Okay, let's see what else people are saying, and I'm gonna get to bed soon because it's late now. Trying to scroll by. Has any Ahmadi discussed Islam with me? Well, we have some good friends that are ex-Ahmadi, and one of my friends I'm hoping is gonna come out soon publicly, and he's gonna ReasonOnFaith, ReasonOnFaith.org. Check out his website. He's an ex-Ahmadi, ex-Muslim, and he's doing a very, very good job. Ahmadis tend to be a little bit better at the apologetics game. So, the arguments are a little bit more reasoned, and they have a little bit different opinions on the Quran and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just another sect of Islam, right? Can I talk about inbreeding in the Pakistani community? I don't know much about that, to be honest. Yeah, cousin marriage is probably not the best thing to do over and over and over and over again. You can probably do it once or twice and not have any problems. But if you keep doing one, a child does it, and then the grandkids do it, and the kids do it, and the grandkids and great-grandkids, you might end up with like genetic issues. And I think it's not only in the Pakistani community. I think it's also in the Arab community. Yeah, that's something that's part of the culture that needs to probably change. Oh, why don't I talk to like atheist YouTubers? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't know Venom Fang XI. Yeah, most Muslims I know who left Islam, they don't tell anybody. What else? We met, eh? Tinker saying we met before. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I used to go from mosque to mosque recording videos. The Tinker, you can email me, and we'll talk. Just either you can go on Twitter, Abdullah Adam, and contact me, or contact me from my channel. Go to my channel, go to contact us, and we'll go from there. Oh, no way, Mubini, an ex-Ahmadi. Whoa, cool. Fantastic. Okay. Would you say that ex-Muslims should try and do anti-dawah? Or should we just live and let live towards other Muslims? Yeah, I think we should. I think we should speak up, because the stage is weighed against us. You have believers who believe that they're going to get like all of this reward and huris and Jannah and all these things, and atheists are like, yeah, I want to live my life. So it's it's unfair game, right? So I do believe we need to speak up, right? Because, and then on top of it, believers have more kids, disbelievers have less kids, so the world's going to be populated with Islam and Muslims, and religious people if we don't say something. So yes, I do believe we need to do anti-dawah, if you want to call it, or dawah for reason, dawah for rationality, dawah for truth, right? Okay. The rationalizer is pretty awesome. Yep, I do like him a lot. He helped me a lot to leave Islam. Okay. All right. Do I have any recommendations of ex-Muslims on Twitter and social media? Okay, so I'm going to end on this. It's getting quite late. Yeah, so recommendations. The Masked Arab on YouTube, but he hasn't made videos in a long time, but check out his videos if you haven't seen them. ReasonOnFaith. Actually, if you go to my YouTube channel and you click on recommendations, so I like other channels. There's a bunch of channels I liked. Hassan Radwan, his channel as well. And I'm hoping more people will make good videos in the future, and I'll feature them as well on my blog, and as well science channels as well, like Kurzagast, and there's also like Thermin Trees, and there's probably a bunch of others which I can't think of right now. But yeah, that's it now. I'm gonna get going now. It's quite late. So thank you guys for watching, and all the best, and just take care and try to spread truth. Like, we need to make a change in this world as well. If we don't, then what's going to happen, right? The world's not going to be the world that we want to live in. So do what you can, when you have time, or when you have energy or money or whatever you can do. Do your best to help the world make a better place. All right, take care. Bye.